Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our blue moon, our blue supermoon on August 30th, 2023. How's everybody doing tonight? Let's go ahead and let you type some stuff into the chat just to make sure that everything's working fine. We should be doing well. And in the meantime, I'm going to have a look at the telescope here real quick. Kind of get that centered a little better. This is our supermoon. It's about 14% higher, or 14% larger than a normal full moon. It's called a supermoon because it's at its closest point in its orbit to the Earth. As a result, it appears larger, as I said, about 14%. And the reason it's called a blue moon, and is the origin of the statement, or the saying, once in a blue moon, is that the blue moon is the second full moon of any month. And we get one, about every 3 years or so, and we get a super blue moon about every 10 to 15 years. The next one will be in 2037. So if you have a chance, don't watch the YouTube video. Go outside and have a look at the moon, and then come back in and watch the YouTube video, making sure to drop a like and a subscription to the channel. Let's go see if we've got everybody here. Okay, Steve, are we getting good audio? I have to have the YouTube turned off, so I can't tell. But I just want to make sure you're hearing everything. I'm going to go ahead and bring this inside, and then I'm going to hook up my extra screens to it real quick, because I got a couple of images that I took that I'd like to share with you guys. And these are some images that I'm going to be analyzing tomorrow, because I want to recreate the discovery of Planet X in 1930, which is the discovery of Pluto.
But it's safe to say the Tan House was known to authorities.
Okay. Oh, so you had me. Cool. All right. So we've got the telescope running right now. We're having a look at the moon. If you maximize your screen, you'll see that we are getting a little bit of a shimmer, and that is from the atmosphere. If we go over here to an enlarged view, you'll be able to see that atmospheric shimmer a little bit better. But seeing conditions are actually pretty good right now. Now, obviously, right now we're looking at that one dominant crater there, the oval-shaped dark crater on the left side of the screen. That's the crater Plato. This sea that's right in the very center of the screen that appears to be a little bit darker than the ones around it, that's the Sea of Tranquility. But if you look back, I always like to talk about the rabbit and the moon. And if you look at the bunny's body, his head is the Sea of Tranquility, that dark spot that we saw, and then you see his two ears coming off. To the left, he's got the snout, and then towards the bottom of the screen, going underneath the Sea of Serenity into the Ocean of Storms, or the Sea of Showers and the Ocean of Storms, arcing around there to the crater Tycho, which is the large crater at about 4 o'clock. That's the body of the bunny, and then you can see his fuzzy little tail down there too, and apparently he's thinking about something. That little thought that he has is the Sea of Crisis. So is anybody able to get outside and have a look at the moon tonight? I guess that's the big question. It's nice to see this online, but it's also kind of cool to see it in person. It is dramatically larger tonight than it normally is, especially when it first came up. It was actually pretty impressive. Now, Steve's going out to have a quick look. You guys ought to go out and have a look at this thing. It's really remarkable tonight, and it's here, at least in Michigan, it's a beautiful night. We've got nice clear skies, and it's a little bit cool, but not too bad. And there's not a lot of wind, so we're not getting an awful lot of shimmer right now, which is nice. I'm going to go ahead and set up these extra screens. I have a tri-screen set up for my laptop, and I find that it's better when I put images and such on the side screens. Otis, quit eating my cable. Otis is here trying to help me out, and he's not really doing a good job here. But I actually was able to get some pictures of Pluto a little bit earlier tonight, which was a goal that I had tonight. That was one of my projects that I had to do. Because in the next couple of days, I'm going to be receiving the adapters that I need, because I'm getting the Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope ready to replace the Ursa that's out in the observatory right now. So we're going from the Ursa 11, which is an 11-inch telescope with a focal length of about 620 millimeters, to the SCT, which is a 10-inch telescope and a focal length of about 2,600 millimeters. The reason for that is that now we're getting into fall. We're getting into what they call galaxy season. The Milky Way is becoming very low on the horizon, and that's where most of the nebula are. And now it's predominantly time to target galaxies, and for that we need a lot of magnification, so we need the longer focal length. Plus, it gives me a chance to go ahead and do a little maintenance and cleaning and upgrade the Ursa a little bit. I want to change the cabling on it somewhat to reduce some of the diffraction spikes that I'm getting, and just kind of get better images. Now, the camera that I'm using tonight is a monochrome camera. It's a black and white camera. It's a ZWO 6200. And one of the problems that you run into with a 6200 is, quite frankly, it has an enormous field of view. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this over here. Give me a second to move some stuff around. This is going to be so here's the observatory computer, and the cool thing about it is that now I can switch over a little bit and go to some other screens. So let's see. Left screen is up right now. Give me just a moment. Give me a second. I'm just going to take off a couple of screens here and then reinstall them so that they're working right. But we'll have those ready in just a second. So we're going to go here. We're going blank just for a second. It'll only be a momentary thing. But we'll go ahead and get that. There we go. Now we've got that back. Now, I'm going to show you a picture that I took 2 weeks ago. Let me just pull it up real quick. Okay. Now, the way that they originally found Planet X, or Pluto, in 1930 was that they took a series of images. And what they were doing was they were actually surveying different parts of the sky. And this would be a typical survey that you would see, where you'd get different star fields. Obviously, you wouldn't have the numbers in them and such. But right here, you're going to see a small dot, and it's marked 134340. That's Pluto. I have the benefit, of course, of knowing where it is, and I was able to image it. These other numbers that you see out here represent different asteroids. And what I'm doing is, having obtained this image about 2 weeks ago, on the 15th, I'm going to compare it to a second image. And I'll pull that up for you real quick. And that's this image right here. Now you see right in the center, we have 134340, which is Pluto again. But notice that the star field is slightly different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these into Adobe Photoshop, and I'm going to compare them. You know, I'll make one translucent, and then I'll put it over the other image. And what I'm going to try and do is line up some of these stars. The orientation of the stars is listed down here. So north is off to your left and east is to the south. And the zoom factor is 0.5. So I've taken both of the images at the same zoom factor, and they're both oriented in the same position because they were both taken from the same camera on the same telescope. And down here in the corner, you can see the objects that are in this star field, one of which, of course, is Pluto, and it's listed as 134340, and the crosshairs are centered on it. And if you look right there, you can actually see the planet Pluto. So let's go on over to the chat and see what we have going. See if anybody has anything to say. And then we'll just go around and have a look back at the moon here for a second. Let's go ahead and do that. So we've got the moon back up here. Let me center it a little bit. The polar alignment on this should be pretty good, but it wasn't something that I did tonight. You know, the polar alignment is in pretty good shape. So let's go on over here to the chat and see who we've got in. Well, we've got Dick Dawson and Judy's here tonight. Chris. Steve is in, of course. So, Steve, you went out and got a chance to have a look at the moon tonight? And you say it's got a little orange color to it? And Chris got to see it as well out in Connecticut. Yeah, we've had a lot of problems lately. My moon tonight is got a little bit of an orange tinge to it. It's probably just some of the smoke left over from the fires in Canada, which are still burning. Yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun to do that. I do know a couple of astronomers, Dick, that would be interested in doing that. For example, we've got Dr. Parks out in Virginia. We've got a couple of guys, Seafoam, and a couple of the guys from the Triple M Discord server, which is where we all kind of hang out. There's a couple of astronomers there with different types of telescopes. And then just for fun, we've got, where's Wally? We've got Wolfie. And we have a really good guy that runs the Byron Bay Observatory, Dylan O'Donnell. You may have seen his videos, Star Stuff. He has a really nice channel down there where he does a lot of great astrophotography. He and I have been in contact for a while. He's always had a standing invitation to use the equipment up here, you know, because you can call in and actually use this telescope remotely. And Where's Wally has used the telescope a couple of times, and Dr. Parks is actually a professional astronomer and a professor at a college out in Virginia. And I actually have a little better equipment than his university does, thanks to the sponsors and benefactors of this channel. That's why it's important to have Patreons and supporters of the channel. I'm in the process of getting some new equipment right now. But since we were able to get Pluto tonight, and I actually have another image that I can compare this to that was done about a week ago. So I may do a series of 3 images and show Pluto moving against the stellar background. And, you know, try and get some information from that. Okay, Dix, who have you seen? Dylan O'Donnell, the Star Stuff guy down in Australia? He's a lot of fun. He's got some really nice videos, and Dr. Parks does a lot of live streams with his university telescope there. But the dome is working perfectly tonight. I actually set a record the other day, and I measured 40 asteroids in one evening. So I was pretty pleased with how everything was going. But in any event, I think what we're going to do now is probably... I did a video on polar alignment the other night. And I think it might not be a bad idea to just go ahead and go through that real quick, just to kind of show you how everything goes with that, you know, in case you guys are interested. So let me go ahead and head on over and do that real quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the telescope control software. This is the Celestron software. And we're just going to direct the telescope to go back home. Now the telescope has to slew, and then the dome has to slew as well. So let's go see where we are now. So you see the telescope is now coming over to Polaris, which is in Ursa Minor. And we'll give the telescope a chance to kind of get around a little bit, get the dome around. So we'll go back over here to Sharp Cap. Because we're not looking at a super bright object right now, like the moon, we'll go ahead and go up to about a 2-second exposure. See if we've got some stars there. Looks like we do, but we're probably off a little bit on the dome. I'll have to fix that when I get out there. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and turn the dome off right now. All right. So if you go up here to Tools, you can go to Polar Alignment, which is right here. And what that will do is that will plate solve the star field that we're looking at. Now, once you have this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to rotate the telescope 90 degrees. And that'll cause the stars to kind of form arcs as the camera rotates. And those arcs each individually, or those arcs have a radius and a center of rotation. And what it'll do is, you see right here, it says the North Celestial Pole is located right here. Now, when I rotate it, it'll tell me what the center of rotation of the mount is, and that'll be off of it just a little bit. And then I'll make a couple of quick adjustments and bring the center of rotation of the mount right here into the North Celestial Pole. So give me just a moment, and I will go on out and do that. I'm going to go off the air for a couple of seconds here. You guys go ahead and feel free to talk amongst yourselves. I will be right back. And that was how you do a quick polar alignment. As you can see, I wasn't very far off. And quite frankly, I just basically tweaked it a little bit to make it a little bit nicer. But that's Polaris pretty much in the center there. So let's go see what we have to look at tonight. Polar alignment. As you can see, I wasn't very far off. And quite frankly, I just basically tweaked it a little. I had my cell phone on just to kind of monitor things for a second while I was out there. There's a satellite just went by in the left lower corner. But that's how you do a polar alignment. Hey, it's my personal dome though. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look and see what we have to see today. So give me just a second and I'm going to bring up Stellarium. Stellarium is a planetarium program that you can actually just download for free. But this is everything that's in the sky right now. Now, you can see where we are. There's Polaris, and here's where the telescope is pointing. We were looking at the moon a little bit ago. Now, right here is the Andromeda galaxy. Since we happen to be in the neighborhood, let's just go ahead and go on over and have a look at that. Now, you see the telescope is starting to slew over to where Andromeda is. It is absurdly bright out there tonight. So we're not going to see a lot of really faint objects. I am going to go ahead and let's have a look at Andromeda, which is a very large object in the sky, and it kind of shows off the wide field aspect of the telescope. Now, I don't see too much right here. So let's go ahead and go up here to Tools and just do, there's a satellite going by, you see it? Right here? Well, let's go up here to Tools and hit Plate Solve and Resync. It'll figure out what it's looking at and it'll move it over to where I told it to be, which specifically was the galaxy of Andromeda. So now it's found where it's looking at, and it's going to slew over to the galaxy. That's it right there. And now it's directly centered in the field. Now we'll go down here to PhD2. This is the guide program. And that's the little telescope that's on top of the big telescope. So we're going to guide on that particular star right there. That'll help track the galaxy and give us nice round stars. And if you look right down here, we're kind of guiding on the order of about 1 arc second, which is a little bit off, but not too bad. Let's go see what this looks like. So there's Andromeda. That's actually just the core of the galaxy. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little longer exposure. We're only exposing for 2 seconds now. Let's go up to about 30 seconds and see what it looks like. This light area out here is part of my flats to control vignetting on the longer exposures to give us a nice even field. If I didn't have these up here, the corners would be extremely dark and the center of the field would be overexposed. So let's go see what it looks like. Now we're starting to see Andromeda a little better. See how much light we're getting from the moon? But you can very clearly see the dust lanes. There's two dust lanes up here. That's M32, which is a little galaxy in the Andromeda group. That's M31, or Andromeda itself, and that's the whole thing right here. And that's M110. The width of Andromeda, if you could see it, would be 5 times the width of the moon. So the moon itself is about this big. And the entire width of that galaxy is some 5 times the width of the moon. Yes, Judy, I'm using the raster right now. But you see how much extra light we have here? You know, it could be catching the corner of the dome, but more than likely that in that direction, that's coming from the, you know, we're getting a lot of moonlight out there. But if you look at the detail that you can get in these images, this is the full image right here. That's 100% of the image. And you see, you're starting to see even the detail on just a couple of, you know, a single 30-second image here. You're starting to see some of the detail in the cloud, in the dust streaks here. You know, it's almost got a 3-dimensional quality to it. Now, another thing that we can do is something called live stacking, and I'll show you what that is. So we'll list the target here as M31. And hit live stack. Make a couple of quick adjustments here. And what this will do is this will stack up images one on top of the other and even out any noise or anything in the image and give us a lot more clarity. So here's the first image. So here's Andromeda and here's M32. Now what we're doing is we're stacking images one on top of the other. That's 2 images that are stacked, and you already see the noise is starting to go down quite a bit. And we're getting a lot more detail in some of these dust clouds. Kind of put it right in there. Notice the stars are nice and round. This is the core of the galaxy. And then these are the arms of the galaxy out here. You can see them a little bit better if we drop down the magnification a little bit. This is a 25% zoom. Notice that I've been able to crop out some of that bright light from the moon. But as we go through here, so that's 3 images. You see how we're getting a lot more detail in here, and the stars are all still nice and round. If you look in the background of the blackness of space here, you'll see it's kind of grainy. That's what I refer to as noise. We can fix that a little bit. If we bring that right to the peak, and then this curved line right here should be just past where it changes in slope right here. And now look at it. Almost looks like you're looking into a cloud, you know, from an airplane here. Dick, the Ursa is a very special type of a telescope. Let me see if I can find you a picture of one. So this is the Ursa. It's an 11-inch telescope, and unlike your standard telescope like these guys here in the back, the camera is actually mounted in the front. So what happens is the light comes in the telescope, it bounces off of a mirror back here, and then it goes straight up to the camera. The result is that you've got a really big aperture here, 11 inches, but a rather short focal length of only 620 millimeters. That gives you an extremely wide field. And combined with the ZWO 6200 wide field camera, it's perfect for what I use it for, you know, basically looking for asteroids. I'm taking this one off here this week, and I'm going to be putting this telescope, the blue one, that's the SCT, and that's a 10-inch SCT. That's a 10-inch telescope, just slightly smaller than this one, but it's got a focal length of 2,500 millimeters, and that's used for high-powered views of galaxies and such. This is an 8-inch Ritchie Crayon, and what that's got a focal length of about 1,620 millimeters, and that's going to go on the portable mount that's coming later on in the week. Then you've got a couple of refractor telescopes over here, and you even have my astronomical binoculars here. These are 25 by 100 binoculars, and they mount like this. There they are installed on their mount. This is a counterbalance mount, so it supports the weight of the binoculars. And that of course is the Shamrock Banks Observatory and our generous benefactors, including Miss Judy here, who's in the audience. But that's what we're looking through right now. And here's our image. Again, let's go ahead and look at this at 100% and see. Look at those dust lanes. See, the stars are still nice and round, and those dust lanes, we're getting an awful lot of detail in them. It's just kind of a nice way to look at the thing. So do I have any requests as far as images that you would like to see? Give me a second, I'm getting over here to chat. Yeah, the original RASA stands for Roe Ackerman Schmidt astrograph. Now, a Schmidt astrograph was designed so that it actually had a door about halfway up the tube, And you would actually slide a photographic plate right to that spot because that's where the focal length was. What Rowe and Ackerman did was they designed a new optical system. And in the front of the telescope, there's a series of lenses that bring that middle focal length to focus right at the corrector plate so you can mount the camera there. And then the camera itself is in something called a photon cage. And that controls the tilt of the sensor because it's you have to have the tilt of the sensor perfect. It has to be perfectly square to the light. And it also has to be at exactly the right focal length. And using some software called Nina and Hocus Focus, I was able to get the tilt to within about 5 microns. That's 1/1000th of a millimeter of being correct, and that's within standard. And the back focus on it is within a micron. So the result is that I'm able to pick up magnitude 19.5 to 20.5 asteroids with this setup. And as you can see here, I'm going to bring this back to 25%, crop out some of that crap on the right. But here we go. So M32, M31, and M110. So let's go see what else we have out here. Okay, so the moon is going to blind me in this whole area. Okay, so I'm kind of limited as to what I can see. But let's look over here. The Triangulum galaxy is extremely dim, and it's extremely difficult to see. I'd like to find you a nice star cluster. Jolly Rogers, I think, is open. Yeah. So right now we're up here at the Andromeda cluster. What's that? Triangularum we're not going to see. See how that moon is just even represented as being extremely bright? I'm thinking we can probably hit this one. This is the great star cluster of Hercules. You see the enormous star field that we're getting here. Now, just to give you an idea, this is a 4-second exposure. Now, notice the number of stars that you see here. Let's go ahead and bring that up to a 15-second exposure and compare the number of stars that you see. See how you're getting a lot more faint stars here? Now, if we bring this up to a minute, see a lot more stars. With big reflectors, why have refractors as well? That's a great question. While we're waiting for this to go, let's go back over here. So, these two telescopes right here are both reflectors. And they are very, very large focal length telescopes. This one is 1620 millimeters. That's 2600 roughly. These are for very high magnification. And they're for looking at small objects that are very far. So for example, these will barely make out planets. You know, I can see Jupiter and I can see the rings of Saturn with them. But as far as getting an awful lot of detail, you need even more than this. Now, on the other hand, say I want to look at a very large object in the sky, like Andromeda or a lot of the nebula. I want to have something that I can see a big swath of the sky with, but not a whole lot of magnification. That's what the RAS is for, and that's what these refractors are for. Now, the Ritchie-Chrétien and the two refractors are very lightweight. And I can put them on a small mount and I can actually bring them around with me if I want. These big telescopes are quite heavy. This thing's over 50 pounds, you know, all told. That one there's about 35 pounds. And they're just not real portable. So they're better suited for an observatory. You can get 14-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes. The Edge is a very nice one. In case anybody wants to donate $12,000 to the observatory, we'll get one. But that would be a very nice one to put in the observatory for getting very detailed views of galaxies and such. But most of the stuff that I look at is wide field. So my main telescope is this guy right here. If I want to zoom in, I'll use that one or I'll use this one. So you use the right tool for the right job. And by the way, that's the result from a 1-minute image of the star cluster. And let's go up to 2 minutes and see what we see with that. So, you know, we use different telescopes for different purposes. Now, another telescope that would be handy would be a solar telescope. Trying to get the right screen here. I know it's in here somewhere. Yeah, Hocus Focus is an add-on to something called Nina, which is the software that I run the observatory with. Is Betelgeuse available, or has Orion dipped below the horizon? Orion is coming up now. When football season starts, you start seeing Horizon, or you start seeing Orion. However, it's up very late at night. So if you want to see where Orion is, I'll show you. Come on. So if we go out here to the east, now, there's Orion down here now. So this line here is the ecliptic, and this is where the planets are and the moon. If you see the cardinal directions here, that's the horizon. And what will happen is Orion will come on up here, and it'll rise out here. It'll rise in this area here in a couple of hours. How many hours? Let's go see. So right now it's 2200 local time. Let's go find it again. So here's Orion right here, and the belt will come up around 2:44 a.m. my time. And of course, Betelgeuse is that guy right there. Actually, it's 10:56 right now. $10:58. So that's a 2-minute exposure. So you can see there's quite a difference, isn't there? Yes, there was a galaxy in Orion's belt in Men in Black, but that was Men in Black 2, as I recall. Okay. So let's go ahead and turn this off for just a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring up Nina. We're going to connect the camera in Nina. And we're going to go over to imaging. Now, what we can do is we can take some pictures here. Okay, so here's what the camera is seeing right now. Come on. Where'd it go? Now, one thing that I've not done yet, and you can probably see it with this image, is I haven't focused properly. So let's go ahead and stop that. And let's do what's called an autofocus. What the autofocus will do is it'll bring it up above focus. You know, it'll change the focus so that it's slightly out of focus on the high side. And it will note where it is. So our focus wasn't bad. It's at 1.4 right now. We want to get this below 1.5. So actually we have acceptable focus, but let's go see if we can get a little better tonight. So now we're down to 1.34. What we're going to look for is we're going to look for a nice V shape in this curve. So it'll go down to focus, and then it'll go through focus and start going up again. And what we want to see is a nice V shape. Notice this red line right here. This is a hyperbola that is calculated to fit these data points that we're seeing, and it's trying to find the lowest point on that hyperbola, and that will be the correct focus. And normally when I take images for science, I focus every 6 images, which is about every 12 minutes. So about every 12 to 15 minutes, you have to do a refocus to take into account temperature changes and changing conditions. Well, we've been going for about an hour. Got a few people out here, getting some questions out in the chat. Some of them astronomy related, some not so much, but all fun. So you see how we're getting this nice V or U shape, and it's got a spot right down here. It thinks that that particular red hyperbola, that's the lowest point on it. So now let's go ahead and have a look here again. And if you can see, the stars are they're in more focus right now. So we're at 1.28. I think that's 1.28. It's either 1.28 or 1.38. Bob doesn't have his glasses tonight. But in any event, that's not bad focus right there. So let's go ahead and turn this back off. I just wanted to focus it real quick. So we're going to get rid of the camera here. And we're going to go back to sharp cap. And there's our star cluster again. Well, let's go find some other targets for us tonight. We're going to head over to 2 of my favorite targets. These are this will be a nice comparison to what we're going to be able to do in the next couple of days when I switch out those telescopes. We're going over to Bode's Galaxy, and it also has the Cigar Galaxy and Garland's Galaxy right next to it. So there's a group of 3 galaxies over there. As you can see, it's in Ursa Major. We'll give it just a second. That's probably it right there. So there's Bode's Galaxy, there's the Cigar Galaxy, and there's Garland's. We'll go ahead and center those up nicely. So now it's going to do a plate solve, and it's going to bring Bode's Galaxy right to the center of the frame because we told it to look to Bode's Galaxy. The fact it's off a little bit right now has to do with, there's a satellite going right through, has to do with the fact that when you move the telescope, you slew it, it goes to where it goes to where you think it thinks you want it to be, but it doesn't move perfectly. It's off just a little bit. So when you get there, lots of times you can do a plate solve and end up centering it right like that. There's another satellite going by. So let's go ahead, have a quick look at these guys. Then I'm going to sit down and do a little science for tonight. Probably end the live stream here and go over to Discord and do some asteroid work. So now that we have that guiding, let's go ahead and do a longer exposure. Yes, I'm cloud-free tonight, Judy. It looks beautiful out there all night long. There is a new comet that is coming up just before dawn that was just discovered by a guy with a freaking camera. I got a notice, I got a note from Shoebill the other day about this new comet. I'm going to see whether or not maybe I can I'm going to see whether or not I can get a confirmation measurement on its orbit tonight and report that into the Minor Planet Center. So here's the raw image. What we want to do is we want to bring the black mark. This is the black limit. We want to bring that right up to the peak. And then the mid-range, we want to manipulate that so the curve is just after where that slope changes. Now, the problem that we're running into, as you can see, is that I don't have a tremendous amount of focal length. This is why I'm switching over to the SCT. This is a wide field. I want to concentrate on that object. Now, I can blow it up like so. Come on over here and see the Cigar Galaxy. But if I do that, I'm only using this much of the camera, right there. And there's the Cigar Galaxy, and there's Garland's up there, I believe. Now, with the higher focal length on the SCT, this will be the entire frame right here. Okay? And that galaxy will take up this much of the frame. Okay? You'll be able to get some more detail in it. With this, I can zoom in on it, of course. But really, what good is this doing me other than giving me some very basic, you can see the arms. I believe this is what they call a barred galaxy. It's kind of an S-shaped galaxy. There's kind of like a bar, and then a galaxy comes out that way there. Now with the Cigar Galaxy, you're kind of looking at it on edge. Plus, with a higher magnification, what I'll have is a color. so that'll look really nice too. So we're going to do a couple of images here and see what they look like. So that's 3 minutes worth of images there. See, this is not a good telescope for looking at planets or looking at galaxies because of the low focal length. That's why it's being switched out. So here's the Cigar Galaxy, here's Bode's, and right there is Garland's Galaxy. I'm going to change this out a little bit and put a little more gain on it, see if we can get a little more detail of those arms of that galaxy. Yeah, I think you're right. That was Men in Black 1. Okay. Well, there we go. There's a hell of a lot of detail. Yep, that's not going to do it. That's too much gain for as much moon as we have. See, if you look at the histogram right here, I've got all this. Here's the signal. And it's all clipped all the way out there. So I've lost most of my image. That's too much gain. Has to do with the amount of moonlight that's out there right now. It's just an absurd amount of moonlight. So we're going to try this again. I put a little more gain on it, but not much. Went from 102 to up to 150. Yeah, Men in Black 2 was that little bug, that little virus-shaped spaceship, and Men in Black 3, I think, was the one back in the 60s. Yes, it's very much like levels in Photoshop. Exactly. Now you see the histogram, I've got image here. So I can work with this. We're getting some of the dust lanes in that, but it's still not a really good. That's not blurred. That's a double star there. But you're getting a suggestion of it. Just not. There's so much magnification, so much zoom on this, and it's such a small part of the sensor. There's just not many. There's not many. Little. Pixels. There's not many pixels right here, so I'm just not getting the detail that I want. Like I said, this camera is designed primarily to look at things like nebula and large objects. There's red and stuff in this in a color image. It's really a beautiful little galaxy. I don't know if we're going to see this tonight. But we can have a look at the Heart Galaxy or the Heart Nebula and see whether or not we can see anything with it. It may just be too bright out. Another satellite. Center it up. I think that's it right there, but we'll see. We're guiding at about half an arc second. You know, that's why I say the key to having an observatory or doing amateur astronomy other than, just having a little telescope, a little refractor on a tripod that you kind of look at things with. If you actually want to track things and do astrophotography, you've got to have a good equatorial mount. And that's where your money ought to go before you buy telescopes. Buy the best mount that you can afford, and then the telescopes, trust me, will come. So let's go see what we have here. So it says the Heart Nebula is right in the center here. We've got some guiding going. Let's take a 60-second exposure and see what we can find. I normally do 2-minute exposures with these. The reason that I'm doing the 60-second exposures right now is just to kind of move it along a little bit. But you can see how crisp those stars are. Also notice that there's no vignetting. in the field, you know, in the corners. With the longer exposures, you get rid of that. See how the field is nice and even all the way through? This is the Heart Nebula right here. I don't think that's artifact. I think that's the Heart Nebula. Let's just go a little larger here. You can see a little nebulosity right here. But this is all nebula as well. If this was color, you'd see the nice red color of that nebula. But the black and white camera is not primarily designed to do color, or is not designed to look at nebula unless you are using narrowband, which is something we'll talk about one of these days. But let's bring this in the center. I'll show you what this thing looks like. So this is called the Heart and Soul Nebula. So here's the Heart Nebula, and then here's the Soul Nebula down here. That's where the telescope is pointing, right at the center of the Heart Nebula, and you can see kind of a heart shape right there. I don't know if you can pick that out in our image. Not really. Well, in any event, it's time for science. I think what I'm going to do is probably shut down this stream and take a break for a few minutes, and go on over to Discord. And we're going to look at some asteroids, maybe even some comets tonight. I think I'm going to use the SCT on the comets, though. I'm going to primarily do asteroids tonight. That's kind of a boring thing to do. You just take 2-minute images for an hour and a half, and then you start running them through Tycho Tracker. But in any event, that's just a little live telescope for tonight. You know, I'll tell you one other thing that we can do real quick that would be fun. Let's look at some satellites real quick, and then we'll shut it down. How's that sound? So we're going to turn off tracking, and we're going to use another program here called SkyTrack. And what we need to do with that is, first thing, we need to go ahead and load up the satellites. Let's look at some GPS satellites tonight. And we're going to download the TLE file. That's the 2-line element file. These are the orbital elements for the satellite. This tells the computer where the satellites are and where to point the telescope. So, now that we have those downloaded, here are the satellites that we can look at. I want to try and stay away from the moon. I'm thinking that might be a good one. This is out over the mid-Atlantic. This is a GPS satellite. This is GPS Block 3-4. This satellite actually has a name, and you can look it up. You can actually look it up in, in Wiki, and it'll tell you exactly what that satellite is. So the mount's been connected. The mount is pointing to where the red circle is. The satellite is where the blue dot is. If we start satellite tracking, what will happen is the telescope will move over and intercept this satellite and start tracking it. Now when we do that, we're going to stop tracking real quick. Once again, we're going to do a quick plate solve to make sure we're right where we're supposed to be. When it intercepts, it'll turn green. Okay, so now it's intercepted. We're going to stop satellite tracking. We're going to go back down here to ASCOM and turn telescope tracking back on. That's sidereal tracking. Then we're going to go over here to SharpCap. Bring this down to just a short exposure. 2 seconds be enough. Stretch it so that we can see stuff, like so. Do a quick plate solve. You could see the Heart Nebula a little bit better there, but it still was kind of an amorphous blob. So now it's plate solved, and it says that we're about 1/4 of a degree off. So it'll move it over to where it's supposed to be. Okay, so there we are. And we're going to go back over here and turn satellite tracking on. Now, when that little circle turns green, you see how it's intercepting here? So now the circle's turned green. Now we're going to go over here, and this is what we see. The satellite's moving, so as a result of that, the stars will be streaked. But where's the satellite? Well, it's a very small object, and it's 20,000 miles away. What we're going to need to do is, first of all, let's take some bets, see if we can narrow it down a little bit. According to the computer, the satellite will be right about there. It'll definitely be within this circle, but it'll be very near those crosshairs. But we still can't see it. Let's zoom it in. Do you get any better than that? There's the satellite. And we are dead on. So the fact that we could find that satellite, we pointed the telescope exactly to where NASA and the JPL says that a satellite is located. We point the telescope there, and guess what? There is a satellite exactly, or there's an object exactly where NASA says the satellite is. That pretty much confirms the orbit of that satellite because we can verify the location ourselves from our backyard. And we can do this with GPS satellites, we can do it with geostationary satellites, we can even do it with low Earth orbit satellites. But depending on how far it is from sunrise to sunset, you may not be able to see low Earth orbit satellites because they'll be in the shadow of the Earth. GPS satellites are, God, what are they, 40,000 kilometers out? About 23,000 miles. And those are geostationary satellites, excuse me. The GPS satellites, and they orbit once every 24 hours. That's why they stay over a single spot on the Earth. GPS satellites orbit the Earth twice a day. So a 12-hour orbital period, and that is because they're about half as far out. They're about 20,000 kilometers out, or about 12,000 miles. Well, folks, I think that that's about it for tonight. If you want to continue watching, there is the Discord. You have to be a member of the Discord for about 5 minutes before you can go into the satellite stream. So now would be a nice time to just go to the description of this video click on that link and go on over and join the Discord. And by the time I get back, you'll be ready to join. So, take care, everyone. Thank you very much for stopping by. Make sure you hit a like on this video, and if you would, and are not already subscribed, go ahead and hit a subscription. So, you guys take care tonight.